Hollywood has mastered the art of illusion, turning danger into spectacle, risk into entertainment, and peril into pure cinematic thrill. But beyond the blinding lights and multi-million-dollar stunt rigs lies a truth the industry rarely admits. Sometimes the danger isn't simulated. Sometimes what you see on screen has a very real cost. Behind the explosive set pieces and carefully choreographed action sequences, there are moments when something slips an angle, missed a cable, misfired a cue, missed time. And in those moments, lives are changed forever. Performers are injured, careers collapse, and families are left grappling with consequences the public never hears about. When these tragedies unfold, Hollywood's machinery moves with chilling efficiency. Cameras are lowered not out of respect, but to control the narrative. Lawyers arrive before paramedics. Studio representatives craft statements designed to soothe public curiosity while revealing nothing. And non-disclosure agreements become the seal that locks away the truth, sometimes permanently. Audiences cheer the realism of their favorite action films without realizing that the realism came with a human price. Studio executives tout practical effects while discreetly burying the stories of the people who bled to make those effects happen. And while Hollywood thrives on publicity, there is one category of story it does everything in its power to keep off the record. The disasters that happened when the cameras were rolling but shouldn't have been. Tonight we revisit those buried moments, the accidents that were muffled, minimized, or erased. These are the secrets stitched into the fabric of some of the biggest action movies ever made. The stories hidden behind the explosions, the falls, the crashes, and the chaos. This is the part of Hollywood they never want you to rewind. But we're gonna do it anyway. Fact 1, The Expendables 3, when a prop became a weapon. On the set of The Expendables 3, the production prided itself on old-school action, real pyrotechnics, real gunfire effects, and real stunt. But during a chaotic combat sequence, a supposed cold prop gun fired a projectile with unexpected force. It struck a background actor directly in the chest, dropping him instantly. Panic rippled across the set, but not the kind rooted in concern. Crew members rushed in only to be met by a wall of studio representatives who appeared almost immediately. Phones buzzed. Quiet conversations erupted. The emphasis shifted from helping the wounded performer to containing what had just happened. The actor survived, but his injury quickly disappeared behind a sealed non-disclosure agreement. His role was quietly reassigned, his name removed from call sheets, and any mention of the incident was scrubbed from production logs. The finished film boasted authentic action, but no one outside the set ever learned how real that authenticity became. Fact 2, Transformers: Dark of the Moon, a cable snap that rewrote a life. Transformers: Dark of the Moon demanded enormous scale, high-speed chases, collapsing structures, and stunt work that pushed performers to their limits. During one setup, a heavy metal cable, stretched tight and designed to control a stunt vehicle, snapped loose with the force of a whip. It sliced through the windshield and struck the stunt driver inside with devastating impact. She suffered catastrophic injuries, including permanent spinal damage. As crew members watched in shock, emergency teams rushed her away. Yet even before the hospital doors closed behind her, lawyers had already begun shaping the studio's response. Production halted only long enough to negotiate a settlement. A non-disclosure agreement ensured the circumstances never reached the public in full detail. The movie became one of the highest-grossing releases of the year. Her future never returned to what it was. Fact 3, XX, a fatal jump hidden behind the franchise. The original XX film built its identity on extreme sports and daring stunts. No CGI substitutes, just flesh and blood professionals executing outrageous feats. But one of the movie's most ambitious motorcycle jumps turned into tragedy. Vin Diesel's trusted stunt, Double attempted to launch off a bridge at high speed, a maneuver choreographed down to the millisecond. But something whined, a mechanical glitch or sheer bad luck sent him veering off the intended path. He collided with the bridge's structure and died instantly. The crew was devastated, yet production resumed after only a brief pause. The incident was officially labeled an unavoidable accident, allowing the studio to sidestep any prolonged inquiry. The stuntman's contribution was folded into a small dedication at the end of the film, easily missed by most audiences. A blockbuster was born, a life was gone, and Hollywood quietly moved forward. Fact 4, The Dark Knight, a chase sequence that claimed a life. During the filming of The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan pushed for a level of realism few modern productions dared to attempt. Real trucks, real speed, real danger. But in the midst of capturing one of the film's most iconic chase sequences, that danger crossed a line. A stunt vehicle misjudged its timing and struck a camera truck, sending the larger vehicle spinning out of control. A special effects technician standing nearby, someone whose job was to bring controlled destruction to the screen, was caught in the path of the collision. The impact was fatal. The tragedy cast a dark shadow over the production, but the studio moved swiftly. Warner Bros. Coordinated statements, streamlined the investigation, and ensured the official ruling was delivered with minimal scrutiny, a tragic workplace accident. No fault assigned. No one held responsible. The technician's name never entered the public conversation. The film went on to become a critically acclaimed masterpiece. Fact 5, Deadpool 2, stuntwoman's first job turned fatal. On Deadpool 2, a talented stuntwoman was performing her first film, doubling job and assignment that should have marked the beginning of a long career. The stunt seemed simple: ride a motorcycle down a city street and land precisely on a designated mark. But pressure mounted with each additional take, and small timing adjustments created larger risks. On the final run, the bike surged forward faster than anticipated. She lost control, struck a curb, and crashed into a building's glass facade. The impact was instantly fatal. The crew was stunned into silence, many overcome with grief. Yet within hours, Fox's legal team arrived to manage what came next. Statements emphasized that she wasn't wearing a helmet because the character didn't wear one subtly shifting attention away from decisions made on set. No charges were brought. No systemic changes were made public. Another performer's life ended while the production continued. Fact 6, Mission Impossible, when commitment to realism became too real. Tom Cruise has built an empire on doing his own stunts, leaping across rooftops, climbing skyscrapers, hanging from helicopters. But during Mission Impossible Fallout, the pursuit of authenticity resulted in a moment the cameras were never meant to capture. While attempting a rooftop jump cruise, miscalculated by a fraction of a second, his foot slammed into the edge of the building, snapping his ankle on impact. The sound was unmistakable. Still driven by instinct or stubborn determination, he pulled himself up and limped out of the frame to finish the shot. Only then did the crew rush in. Production shut down for weeks, costing millions. Behind closed doors, questions circulated. Should the stunt have been adjusted? Was Cruise pushing himself too far? But none of these concerns left the studio walls. As both star and producer Cruise existed outside the normal chain of accountability. In a twist both unsettling and characteristic of Hollywood's priorities, the studio used the actual footage of his injury as part of the movie's promotional campaign. Real pain became a selling point. Hollywood didn't just accept the accident, it marketed it. Fact 7, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, a stunt that stole a future. For years, Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double had been the unsung force behind Harry Potter's most intense action scenes. Young, skilled, and deeply committed, he was preparing for what should have been another routine wire pull, one of the countless magical blast effects required in the final film. But this time, the stunt went catastrophically wrong. He was launched backward at high velocity, but instead of hitting the padded landing zone, his body crashed into a solid wall. Crew members recall the instant silence that followed the awful realization that something irreversible had just happened. He survived, but the blow left him paralyzed from the chest down. A promising career vanished in seconds, replaced by a lifetime of physical challenges. Warner Bros. Quickly initiated an internal investigation, but its scope was narrow, its findings vague. The official public line remained safely distant, a tragic accident. Legal agreements soon followed, ensuring that the deeper details never surfaced. A young man lost his mobility, yet the franchise continued untouched. In fact, 8 Troy Achilles brought to his knee. On the expansive set of Troy, Brad Pitt trained relentlessly to embody the legendary warrior Achilles. Endless sprint drills, choreographed fights, and long days in armor took their toll. But production pressed on after all the film's epic scale demanded speed and efficiency. During one of the many action sequences, Pitt felt a searing snap in his leg. He collapsed, unable to continue. Doctors later confirmed the irony that echoed through the set. He had torn his Achilles tendon, the very injury that defined the mythic character he portrayed. The production scrambled. Insurance representatives hovered. Studio lawyers crafted statements minimizing the injury. The public heard of a brief delay, nothing more. But those on set knew how close the film came to losing its lead actor, and how dangerously thin the line was between performance and real physical strain. Pitt eventually healed, but the incident remained a quiet reminder that even Hollywood gods bleed. Fact 9, The Crow, fatal shot they couldn't explain away. The Crow was meant to be Brandon Lee's breakthrough, dark, stylish, iconic. Instead, the film became synonymous with one of Hollywood's most devastating tragedies. During a scene involving a handgun, a fragment of a real bullet remained lodged in the barrel after improper prop preparation. When a blank was fired, the fragment launched with lethal force. Lee fell, and at first some believed he was acting. But the spreading blood made the truth horrifyingly clear. He was rushed to the hospital, but the injury was fatal. What followed should have been extensive investigations and accountability. Instead, confusion dominated. Departments blamed each other. Corners cut for time and budget were acknowledged privately but never addressed publicly. The final ruling, accidental death, closed the case without holding a single person responsible. The movie eventually achieved cult status, but it carried a weight that could never be separated from the tragedy behind it. Brandon Lee's final performance was forever tied to a fatal mistake that Hollywood never fully explained. Fact 10, hangover part, comic scene with a life-changing cost. Behind the outrageous humor of the hangover part, I was a stunt designed to look chaotic yet harmless, a car speeding through the tight streets of Bangkok before screeching to a dramatic stop. But during one take, the stunt went disastrously wrong. The vehicle clipped a corner at the wrong angle, and the stunt performer inside was hurled headfirst into a metal post. The impact was catastrophic. He was rushed to the hospital, slipping into a coma. When he finally regained consciousness, part of his skull had been removed to relieve pressure, and his cognitive abilities were permanently affected. Warner Bros. Moved quickly to control the public narrative. Statements portrayed the incident as an unexpected mishap, a phrase that concealed the severity of what actually occurred. Behind closed doors, lawyers began negotiating a settlement, one meant to ensure silence rather than accountability. The film went on to become a commercial success. The man whose work made it possible never returned to the career he once had. Fact 11, Rambo First Blood part, the moment a hero nearly fell from the sky. The set of Rambo First Blood part, I was an arena of explosions, military hardware, and high-risk stunts. But one of the most dangerous moments didn't happen during a scripted scene. It happened by accident. Sylvester Stallone was harnessed beneath a helicopter for a dramatic aerial shot. But as the aircraft dipped lower than expected, its spinning blades came frighteningly close to his head, close enough that some crew members screamed in panic. The pilot pulled up just in time, preventing what could have been a fatal decapitation. Yet the incident never made it into official reports. No investigations, no safety reviews, no public acknowledgement. The near disaster lived only in whispers shared among those who had witnessed the split-second brush with death. Hollywood kept the cameras rolling. The world never knew how close it came to losing its action icon. Fact 12, The Maze Runner, the stunt that nearly ended a leading man's career. While filming The Maze Runner, the death-cured Dylan O'Brien was performing a complex vehicle stunt, fast-paced, dangerous, but meticulously planned. Until the moment it wasn't. Misalignments in timing sent O'Brien crashing into the side of a moving rig. He was dragged, slammed to the ground, and left with multiple serious fractures, including facial and neurological injuries. Production halted instantly, though. The studio's initial statements downplayed the severity of the incident. Recovery took months of surgeries and physical therapy. Emotionally, the trauma cut deeper. O'Brien later admitted he feared he might never return to acting. Behind-the-scenes conversations circulated about whether the stunt had been rushed, poorly timed, or fundamentally unsafe. But none of these questions were ever addressed publicly. The truth remained behind studio doors. And once again, schedule demands outweighed safety concerns. Fact 13, Quantum of Solace, a high-speed stunt that almost turned deadly. The James Bond franchise prides itself on precision and elegance, even in chaos. But during Quantum of Solace, one of its most carefully engineered car stunts spiraled out of control. A veteran stunt driver was maneuvering an Aston Martin down a narrow mountain road near Lake Garda for a rehearsal. The pavement was slick with early morning moisture, and at high speed, even the smallest slip becomes catastrophic. In an instant, the car lost traction, smashed through a barrier, and tumbled violently down the steep hillside. Crew members scrambled down the rocky slope, uncertain whether they'd find a survivor. The vehicle was unrecognizable, crushed, twisted, and half submerged. Yet against all odds, the stunt driver was alive, though seriously injured. MGM reacted quickly but coldly. The incident was summarized in a brief statement as an unfortunate accident, a neat phrase that erased the warnings stunt crew had raised about the route's danger. The production pressed on, determined to maintain Bond's trademark bravado no matter the risk. The final film dazzled audiences with its adrenaline-fueled chase sequences. Few knew how close they came to witnessing a real tragedy. Fact 14, The Avengers, when a wire rig became a weapon. Behind the spectacle of the Avengers, the explosions, the mid-air tosses, the superhuman impacts lay an infrastructure of rigging, pyrotechnics, and daredevil precision. But one stunt pushed that infrastructure past its breaking point. A stunt woman was strapped into a wire system designed to yank her backward, as if struck by an alien blast. A small pyrotechnic charge connected to the rig was meant to pop lightly, adding punch to the effect. Instead, it detonated with far greater force than anyone anticipated. The blast ripped through her face and torso, leaving deep burns and open wounds. Crew members rushed toward her in shock, but before panic fully took hold, Marvel's representatives began shaping the narrative. The official explanation would be simple equipment malfunction. Her name was kept from the press. Details were withheld. The massive machinery of the MCU paused only briefly before continuing full speed ahead. The stunt woman underwent multiple surgeries, her future in the industry uncertain. Behind the polished sheen of superhero triumph was a moment of real violence, one the studio ensured would remain out of the spotlight. Fact 15, now you see me, a magic trick that turned all too real. The water tank illusion in Now You See Me demanded intensity chains, locks, and the illusion of drowning. But for Isla Fisher, the danger became real when her underwater release mechanism jammed. As she struggled, her movements looked so convincing that the crew mistook her genuine distress for performance. She thrashed, kicked, and fought against the restraints, each second drawing her nearer to real panic. The safety button she was meant to press was out of reach. With one last desperate effort, she managed to free herself just long enough to surface for air. Only then did the crew realize that they had been watching a near-death experience unfold before their eyes without recognizing it. The incident was later softened in interviews as an amusing close call, but the truth was far more harrowing. A few seconds more and the scene would have ended in tragedy. Hollywood's commitment to authenticity had nearly drowned an actress on camera, and hardly anyone knew. Bonus fact, the incident's Hollywood buried before anyone could ask. For every publicly known stunt disaster, there are countless others that never escaped the studio walls. Minor injuries that weren't minor at all, near fatalities rewritten as routine complications, careers derailed quietly with no announcements and no farewells. These hidden accidents form a shadow history of Hollywood, one written in sealed documents, lost opportunities, and silence purchased at a premium. When something goes wrong on set, the response is swift and calculated. Lawyers arrive before reporters. Safety officers vanish behind closed doors. Meetings unfold in rooms where every word is measured. The objective is simple: manage the narrative before it becomes a problem. Performers who speak out risk their careers. Many never work again, not because they were at fault, but because their continued presence reminds studios of the liability they represent. Their names slowly fade from call sheets. Their phones stop ringing, and the story of what happened to them becomes something spoken in hushed tones, if spoken at all. Among stunt performers, certain productions are remembered as warning sets where explosions fired prematurely, rigs malfunctioned repeatedly, or safety briefings were skipped to rush the day's schedule. These cautionary tales circulate quietly, never reaching the public eye. Meanwhile, the audience sees only flawless execution, the hero outrunning fire, the crash landing that looks impossibly real, the villain thrown across the room as sparks fly. Behind these moments may be a real injury, a ruined career, or a life held together by settlements and non-disclosure agreements. And perhaps the most chilling truth of all is this: the accidents we know about are just the ones Hollywood didn't bury deep enough. Hollywood thrives on spectacle, the kind that leaves audiences breathless and hungry for more. But behind every explosion, every leap, every breathtaking stunt is a quiet story the industry hopes you never hear. Real people were put in danger. Real injuries happened. Real lives were changed forever. If you believe these hidden truths deserve to be brought into the light, if you think the people behind the scenes deserve recognition rather than silence, then let your voice be part of that light. Like the video, share your thoughts below and help break the silence that has protected these secrets for far too long. And if you want more untold stories, more truths buried behind the glamour, subscribe to Behind the Velvet Curtain. We're only just beginning to reveal what Hollywood never intended you to see.